So government is officially shut down, sort of, kind of. I mean, certain parts of government are shut down because of foreign interference, because of mismanagement, because party leaders can't agree on certain things, because of corruption. I mean, the list can literally go on and on and on. And so now it's about time that they figure this out. That was a story that broke headlines last night, early this morning. What's going to happen today? Well, question period has already taken place and it got really out of control. So we're going to have clips about question period later on in the video, but we're going to be talking about how the Bloc Québécois is saying, hey man, we're going to call an election as early as next week. This isn't misinformation. This isn't clickbait. This isn't hopium. This is coming right out of the Bloc's mouth. It's pretty crazy, but it's actually happening. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. And I do have a pretty awesome announcement for channel members. If you're a channel member, under the channel member community tab, there is a code there for you to get 15% off of the sticker pack that I launched last night and the one that I launched right now. And for those who aren't channel members, of course, the sticker pack is still available for you, but if you want to save some money, then become a channel member, and that's a great way to do it. Here is the awesome sticker pack. We've got Only Scams, the Liberals. You've got, of course, the classic Freeland on a Broom. You've got Trudeau Must Go. You've got Keep Calm and Never Vote Liberal. And then you have the Stop the WEF, of course, Klaus Schwab. The link for this can be found down in the description or the pinned comment below. These sticker packs are a reduced price, even without the membership 15% off, so that you can put them on gas stations, you can put them everywhere and anywhere, so that we can have more people getting attention and eyes onto what's going on. You remember back in the day how they had the Harper stickers under the stop sign, Stop Harper, and then it turned into Stop Trudeau? I'm hoping that that's kind of what these turned into. Nonetheless, I'm super happy at how the Only Scams turned out. Nonetheless, let's get right into this video. So we're going to start off with the polls. You've got the Conservatives right here at 221 projected seats with a bottom line of 195 and a top end of 246. Then you've got 61 projected seats with Justin Trudeau, 42 with the Bloc, and hold on a second here. I'm 30 years old, folks. I've got my first gray hair. I posted that on social media. I got to zoom in here. Not to be condescending to you, Jag Meat. I, of course, wouldn't do that to you. 17 projected seats. A tiny, itty-bitty number for an itty-bitty man. And then you've got 99% likely across the board for the Conservatives of winning the most seats and odds of a majority government. Everything is looking good right there, except for Jag Meat, who's stuck down at the bottom. And to him, I say, come at me, bro. And then, of course, let's get into right away this video of the Bloc where they announced, hey man, I think we are done here with what's going on. We're going to call an election as early as next week. Now look, I could do that French accent because Français c'est ma première langue. Here we go. According to Government Corrupt on X, breaking, the Bloc leader says Trudeau government acted spineless by not providing the Bloc with clear answers. Blanchet says he will begin the process to force an election as early as next week.
Why, Mr. Blanchet, why are you still willing to work with the Liberal government when they voted down this motion? Is that not sending a signal of some sort?
Okay, let's understand things as they are. The government, I will learn that word one day, did not have the spine to provide us and Canadians and Quebecers with a clear answer. So they just want to get some more time and to keep not deciding about anything. They might hope that they will go further than October 29th. They will not. So they have until a few days from now to go on with the royal recommendation. And if they do not, we will start as rapidly as next week to speak with other oppositions in order to get ready to go into an election. And I will tell you both in English and French that it is noticeable that the NDP voted in favor of this motion and that they could have eventually to assume the consequences of such a vote if we get to the next step without the government providing us and Canadians and Quebecers with what we want.
Let's go! Oh my goodness, I've never been a bigger fan of the Bloc than I am about to be. This is incredible. And I feel like finally Canada can unite. We can all come together, cut the division, and we can have a freaking election, man. This is awesome. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Now let's take a look at what mainstream media has to say here about the matter.
In Ottawa, the Bloc Québécois is warning Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that the party's ultimatum to the government still stands after the Liberals voted against a Bloc motion to increase benefits for seniors.
They could decide, notwithstanding the motion, to give the Royal recommendation to C319. It's still possible. So let's be fair with our commitment.
The Bloc's non-binding motion passed with the support of the other opposition parties. Blanchet has given the government until October 29th to enact a pair of bills, or the Bloc will begin discussions with other parties to bring the government down. And let's bring in Tom Mulcair, CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader. Tom, good to have you here as always.
Good to be with you, Renee.
Now, the Bloc's motion passed in the House of Commons. Is this a big win for the party?
It is a huge win for the Bloc because they've been pushing something, to steal a popular phrase, that was common sense. Right now in Canada, there's a top-up to old age security if you're over 75 years old, 75 and older. The Bloc was simply saying, let's extend that to people who are 65 to 74 years old. And by the way, even though these are people in parts of the country that know nothing about the Bloc, they became very popular because politicians and media folks that I've been talking to for the past week have all said, look, this is coming up constantly. Seniors want this. So this is a big victory for the Bloc, and it's a big trap for Trudeau. He's being squeezed on both sides. We've talked about the first part before. As they headed into the last budget, the Liberals suddenly learned what everybody in the Conservative Party already knew, which is that he was losing massively the 18 to 35-year-old vote. Young people realized that they were going to be less well off than their parents. For example, they had very little chance of ever owning their own home compared to their parents and even their grandparents. So he lost the youth vote. And one of the few parts of the electorate that stayed rock hard solid with the Liberals was older voters, was seniors. And lo and behold, somehow Trudeau decided to close the trap on himself by voting against this Bloc thing yesterday. Now, it's obvious why they're doing it. You know, Poilievre loves to say that Canada's broken. No, it's not, but Canada is broke. We're dead broke. We don't have the 15 billion, 16 billion that it would cost over the next 5 years or so to put this into effect. And it's been fascinating to watch. Freeland knows it's a good idea. Trudeau knows it's a good idea. They know that they're going to get pummeled with a key part of their electorate, but they're caught in a bind. And that's why I think this is a very good political coup by the Bloc. But what they tend to all forget, whether it's Poilievre or Blanchet or indeed Singh, they tend to forget one thing. The only person who's going to decide what happens from here on in is Justin Trudeau. But I'll make one safe prediction, is that Trudeau's not going to put up with this current situation for very long. The Liberals can keep their fingers crossed that somehow Singh, because the NDP is broke, won't be anxious to bring down the government. That might be true, but it's not going to keep going. At some point, Singh's going to have to assume, and he's going to have to vote down the government with the other parties. So Trudeau's got different options on the table. One that I've been hearing a lot from senior Liberals is prorogation, suspending Parliament, allowing a leadership race. But you know what? He could go straight for dissolution and his own resignation. So let's see what happens in the coming days, probably weeks. But there's going to be a big change in Ottawa. There's no question about that.
Interesting. These moves by the Bloc, is that a serious threat to the government?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Worried?
Well, it's not a threat they can pull off individually. It takes the three major opposition parties. The Greens are in there, but they've only got a couple of seats. So let's talk about the three that have the power to bring down the government. That's the Conservatives, the NDP, and the Bloc acting together. Because any one of those three, unlikely that it'll be the Conservatives, but certainly the NDP and the Bloc both have enough votes to keep the government in power, to keep Trudeau in power. So that's the key thing that Trudeau and his folks are counting on right now. What Blanchet is saying as of October 29th, we're gone. If you don't give us these two things, and clearly Trudeau will not, if you don't give us these two things, we will not support your government. So that means that he's going to start talking to the NDP and put pressure on them. I don't see, because of their current financial situation, I don't see how the NDP is going to be able to bring down the government soon. But I don't think that financial situation is going to improve much predictably in the short future. So maybe Singh can be brought along to do it, but his caucus is extremely nervous, and I think it'll take a lot for him to bring down the government.
All right, that is.
So we could see a couple of different outcomes here. One is that Justin Trudeau may very well give the Bloc exactly what they want last minute. That could very well happen, and then the Bloc would say, okay, no more election, we are pleased. That is one outcome. Although it's very unlikely, it's still a possibility. Then the other possibility is the Bloc says, okay, we haven't gotten what we want, we're going to call an election. And then Pierre says, all right, sign me up, I got the papers all ready to go, sign right here. And then they call for another vote of non-confidence. Now, this can go two ways. The Bloc and the Conservatives vote in favor of non-confidence. The NDP, I know, they're trouble, right? They're trouble. They stand up with the Liberals and say, no, we still have confidence in the government, and so we are not going to vote on this behalf. That's likely, not likely. That is a possibility, although not extremely likely, still a possibility. The other approach through the vote of non-confidence is the Bloc says, okay, vote. Pierre, of course, is going to go on with that. So you got two parties going, okay, we're voting. Justin Trudeau needs Jagmeet Singh. You need Jagmeet Singh to vote against the vote of non-confidence. So in that scenario, if Jagmeet, and they can absolutely abstain from voting, they can just sit down and say, we don't vote. That's a possibility, which I see as more likely. But then you can also have Jagmeet go to the other side with the Bloc and say, you know what, let's just give the people what they want and call an election. So out of all those options, I see two as, the most probable. Jagmeet voting with the Bloc, or Jagmeet and the NDP abstaining from voting. We don't really know how this is going to play out yet. There is still a little bit of time. There's a couple more days in the week, right? There's Thursday today. There's Friday. There's the weekend. They talk behind doors without press on the weekend. Come Monday, Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday, we could very well see a vote of non-confidence happen again on Wednesday next week. We don't know yet how this is going to play out. But before we get into the question period stuff, I would absolutely love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think that this is just hopium? Do you think that the Bloc is going to get what they want last minute? Do you think, oh my God, we're heading into another vote of non-confidence? Let me know your theories down below. And now let's get into what happened earlier today in question period, because it got really out of control. All questions! Questions Honorable Leader of the Opposition, soon to be Prime Minister again. Here we go, folks.
Mr. Speaker, this is the most costly centralizing government in Canadian history. This government is bad for Quebec. The government has broken the immigration system, doubled the cost of housing, and doubled the debt.
Damn, translators coming out hot.
It's bizarre that the Bloc Québécois leader has become the worst negotiator in Canadian history. The Bloc Québécois leader decided to vote 2 more times their confidence in this government to keep them in power without gaining a thing for agriculture or for seniors. Does the government wish to thank the Bloc Québécois leader?
She's translating faster than Pierre's talking. How is that even possible? Oh my goodness. W's in the chat for the translator. That was impressive.
Selkirk Eastman, Interlake, please. The Honourable Ministre des Services.
The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Conservative leader mentioned that something is bizarre. Let me tell you what's bizarre. In Canada, there are 2.4 million seniors who received their Canada Dental Care Plan. 800,000 of them are in Quebec. Several 100,000 Canadians have been able to receive dental care, sometimes for the first time in decades. It's odd, though, because the Conservative leader says that the Canada Dental Care Plan does not exist. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Parliament seems to be paralyzed because the Prime Minister goes against your judgment. The Prime Minister refuses to give evidence to the RCMP about yet another Liberal scandal. The scandal is that top execs appointed by Liberals paid $400 million to their own businesses, which is a total of 184 conflicts of interest, according to the Auditor General. Why would the Prime Minister go against your government and refuse to provide evidence in yet another Liberal scandal? The Honourable Government House Leader.
Translator's on point today.
What the opposition leader just said is completely false. These Conservatives currently are trying to do away with charter-protected rights by using extraordinary powers. They want to take independence away from police in our society. They don't seem to understand what a dangerous precedent they are starting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Paralyzed, unable to work on the problem of doubling housing costs or 2 million people at the food bank because the government is refusing to respect your ruling to turn over evidence in the criminal investigation.
Wow.
An issue is that Liberal appointees directed $400 million to companies they own involving 184 conflicts of interest, according to the Auditor General. Why is the Prime Minister breaking your ruling to cover up criminal evidence in the latest Liberal scandal?
W's for Pierre, man.
Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, the Leader of the Opposition is negating to tell the whole truth to Canadians, because what the Conservatives are doing are trying to use the extraordinary powers of this place to circumvent the judicial requirement of police to protect the charter rights of Canadians. Now, I want to believe that the Leader of the Opposition doesn't understand what he's doing, but I'm even more concerned that he does understand, and the charter rights of Canadians are not important to him.
Yeah, I don't think so, buddy pal.
Leader of the Opposition.
It should be no surprise that Liberals believe that white-collar criminals can hand over $400 million to their own companies, because we see the case of the dirtbag Tibor Organo, who shot a police officer in the stomach yesterday while on bail after having been arrested for 24 offenses he committed while he was out on probation. So let's get this straight. He's out on probation for many crimes. He gets arrested for violating probation, so he gets released on bail and shoots a police officer. When will this government finally accept that their hug-a-thug, catch-and-release system is putting our people at risk?
Hug-a-thug. How does Pierre come up with all these?
In the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our hearts go out to the police officer, because no police officer should be hurt in the line of duty. But, Mr. Speaker, what is extremely concerning is what the Leader of the Opposition is doing in this House today, where he is trampling the charter rights of Canadians. Whether it is in this House, whether it is outside, Canadians need to be extremely alarmed about the fact that when it comes to their rights, his first instinct is to trample over them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hug-a-thug. Let's get some hug-a-thugs down in the comments.
The Opposition.
I think you have a charter right to get released after 24 offenses while you're already on probation and shoot a police officer in the stomach. I'm more worried about the charter rights of the police officer who's recovering from the gunshot.
Yeah. From that hug-a-thug policy.
This is what the police officer said. Almost everyone we arrest is out on bail. No one stays in jail where they belong. The city and the feds just don't care. It just doesn't bother them. It doesn't matter how many die and if a cop gets shot. That's right. What's wrong with you people?
Yeah. Whoa! Hug-a-thug policies. What's wrong with you Liberals, man? You got people killing other people that are released out on bail. Cop killers.
The Opposition, as well as all members of Parliament.
The hell's wrong with you too, Fergus?
And answers should be directed through the chair. The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, when the men and women in uniform in my city of Toronto or right across the country are harmed in the course of their work, they deserve our absolute respect and solidarity, which we always provide to them. In terms of decisions that are made about bail, these are important considerations. They're considerations where we've made amendments to the bail regime. What happens after amendments are made at the federal parliament is that the ball turns over to the provinces. We need to ask genuine questions about who's making decisions about granting or denying bail. Provincially appointed JPs. About provincial crowns who are making decisions about whether to review bail and what kind of conditions to impose. Those are questions that need to be asked because we need...
Mr. Speaker, bad news keeps rolling in from credible financial experts. This week's Economist, quote, were Canada's 10 provinces and 3 territories an American state, they would have gone from being slightly richer than Montana, America's 9th poorest state, to being a bit worse off than Alabama, the 4th poorest. Alabama. To fix a problem, one has to admit that it exists. Will the government admit that under its policies, Canada is now poorer than Alabama, America's 4th poorest state?
That is insane. Like, that's depressing.
The Honourable Minister for Digital Services.
Speaker, the Conservatives are very particular about what statistics they choose to share. If they want to share, compare Canada to the U.S.
The Honourable Minister from Digital Services can start again from the top.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are very careful about the statistics they choose to share. If they want to compare us to the United States, we might start with health care or dental care or farmer care or child care. But if they want to focus on the economy, they might focus on the fact that we have a lower deficit, that we have lower debt servicing costs, that we pay a lower interest rates than America does, that we have higher forecast economic growth. The unfortunate thing is because of the dangerous promises of the Leader of the Opposition, they don't want Canadians to hear about that, which is why they're promising to cancel the CBC.
The Conservatives are like pissing themselves laughing.
That's awesome. What? From Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, this data, these statistics aren't coming from Conservatives. They're coming from credible financial experts at the Financial Times of London and The Economist, 2 organizations for which the finance minister wants to work, and surely the government isn't suggesting these organizations are biased. Again, to fix a problem, one has to admit that it exists. Will the government admit that under its spending, its budgets, its plans, Canada is now poorer than Alabama, America's 4th poorest state?
Wow, no fucking around today. Sorry, no messing around today.
The Honourable Minister for Services.
Of course not, Mr. Speaker. What the member opposite is saying is ridiculous. The truth is that the Leader of the Opposition offers Canadians no viable solutions. On housing, they want to add 5%.
Look in the background, Elizabeth May with her 2 seats. She's planning what they're going to say at the end of it. Was there a flask sticking out of her pocket? Somebody look.
Sit down. The Honourable...
When we see her again.
For Digital Services from the top, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. They don't want to hear this information.
Is she snoozing?
I mean, the truth is the Leader of the Opposition offers no solutions for Canadians. On housing, he wants to add 5% tax on apartment construction. On affordability, doesn't support dental care, doesn't support pharmacare, doesn't support child care. He doesn't support the tax cuts that we gave for the middle class, doesn't support the tax cuts we gave for small business, and worst of all, is he doesn't want anybody to hear about this, which is why he wants to cancel the CBC and take that away from Canadians as well.
They didn't even mention CBC. Are you good, bro?
The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
After 9 years of NDP Liberal government, taxes are up, costs are up, crime's up, time's up, and corruption is way up. Here's what we know so far. The Liberals stacked the SDTC board with their close friends. That board makes decisions as to which companies get grants worth millions in tax dollars. The Auditor General uncovered a massive scandal. These Liberal insiders funneled almost $400 million to their own companies. They got rich, taxpayers got the bill. Now the government's refusing to hand over the documents to the RCMP for a potential criminal investigation. So what have they got to hide?
Hey, man.
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, again, the House Leader for the Conservatives is completely false in what he is stating in this place. What is true is that the Conservatives have put forward a motion that would blur the lines between the independence of the legislative and judicial branches of government. It is both the RCMP and the Auditor General who have raised their extreme concern with what the Conservatives have put forward. Every Canadian should be concerned about...
We are concerned about your scams.
...is to suspend the charter rights of Canadians.
Even the House Speaker said, all right, we need to figure this out.
The charter is there to protect the people from the government, not to protect the government from accountability by the...
Boom! Boom! W's!
Millions of Canadians are...
Line of the day.
Taxes, higher prices, and doubled housing costs, all caused by this government. The Speaker has ordered that the House of Commons can deal with no other business until this corruption motion is dealt with, and they still won't hand over the documents, preferring that Parliament grind to a halt. While millions of Canadians are lining up for food banks, Liberal insiders are lining their own pockets. So when will the government hand over the documents, and when will the government get Canadians their tax dollars back?
Man, that's the best quote I've heard in a long time. Good job, Scheer.
Mr. Speaker, I think my honourable colleague's erratic and unhinged behaviour is because he knows that he is being completely false in what he is putting forward to this place. Mr. Speaker, what the Conservatives are putting forward is to trample the charter rights of Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Both the RCMP and the Auditor General have raised their extreme discomfort, and every single Canadian should be extremely alarmed by the behaviour of the Conservative members of Parliament who would put their own political interests ahead of the rights of Canadians.
I just want to remind all members to use language. Make sure that it doesn't skate too close to the line. I made this point yesterday during question period as well when a question was asked from the other side.
Carbon tax Carney took on a role as the de facto finance minister for the NDP Liberals, and almost immediately he got $2 million for his buddy who owns Telesat, and then he landed discussions for his trillion-dollar company Brookfield to get their hands on 10 billion Canadian pension dollars. And then he starts sending fundraising letters for these Liberals. After 9 years of these NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time's up for their corruption. Will they simply cooperate with an investigation from the lobbying commissioner?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, they continue to try to smear a Canadian who is recognized around the world for his work. I want to go back to their weird admiration of Alabama. Did you know that Alabama has the third lowest life expectancy in the United States? Did you know that the life expectancy in Alabama is a full decade lower than in Canada? Did you know...
What is wrong with this guy?
The most restrictive rules around a woman getting access to an abortion or contraceptives? Is that what they admire about Alabama? Is that why they're talking about upping Alabama's and saying that Alabama is better than Canada? I wonder why they're so interested in Alabama, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
What?
Well, I know we've been hearing about unhinged responses today, and there's one. You can check the answer. There was nothing about Alabama in here, but you could see that from noted Liberal strategist and commentator Trevor Tombe, who did make that comparison. But when we are making comparisons, you can make many to banana republics and the corruption under this NDP Liberal government, with the Prime Minister twice found guilty himself of breaking ethics laws. This government is absolutely out of touch after 9 years. And now they put in Mark Conflict of Interest Carney in charge of their economic policy. Why can't we just have a carbon tax election?
Yeah. Mark Collins' hands are literally shaking. You can see him down there. He's literally shaking.
Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand why the member opposite's getting a little riled up, because there's some uncomfortable truths that are being put forward here. And while they continue to talk down Canadians and talk down our country, the bigger concern is what they're trying to do in this place, where they are overriding the charter rights of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to privacy rights, and indeed when it comes to a woman's right to choose, what we know the first inclination of Conservative Member of Parliament Parliament to do is to take them away. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Calgary, Nose Hill.
A $1 trillion everything corporation that's currently asking for billions of tax dollars recently faced shareholder calls for transparency after a scathing report raised questions about whether Brookfield engages in tax avoidance strategies when it comes to paying Canadian tax. The Liberals just appointed Brookfield's board chair, carbon tax promoting Mr. Carney, to craft Canada's economic policy. The Liberals won't say if they cleared this with the lobbying commissioner. Are the concerns Brookfield shareholders had about tax transparency the reason why?
The honourable leader of the government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, this is another typical attack from the Conservatives against Canadians who do not support their vision for Canada. We have seen this over the last 9 years, that when Canadians, and it's, I guess, hurtful for them when it's people they appointed to important positions that come forward and don't actually agree with their vision of Canada, what do? They attack them. They bring them down. They are not open to debate or to criticism, and their only inclination is to attack fellow Canadians.
The honourable member from Calgary, Nose Hill.
This is, Mr. Speaker, as another typical Liberal scandal. The Conflict of Interest Act prohibits ministers from furthering interests of their friends, which is why the Act requires ministers to declare close friendships with people who lobby. The finance minister has frequently mentioned her close personal friendship with the chair of Brookfield.
Wow.
And who now holds a senior Liberal economic advisory position. In describing her relationship with the carbon tax promoting Mr. Carney, the minister said things like, "Truly, Mark is a personal friend of mine, very long-standing. I speak with Mark often, and he's the godfather of my son." Has the minister declared her friendship with the world's...
The honourable government House leader.
Mr. Speaker, again, this is just a simple personal attack because the Conservatives are sad or disappointed that there are eminent Canadians that don't support their dangerous vision of Canada, to be honest. There's a reason why Canadians who have global recognition are working to support a progressive vision of this country. But what we see from the Conservatives is that when Canadians or organizations don't support them, all they do is attack.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the video. I hope you're as excited about what's to come in the next week or two as I am, because I am truly, I mean, I'm with the block, man. I think that they are not getting what they want, and they are going to pull the cord on this Liberal deal, and that will trigger a vote in non-confidence. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how this all plays out. But I want to pass a question off to you as we approach the end of the video. How do you feel about this? Where do you stand? Do you think that there will be another vote in non-confidence? Do you think that'll trigger an election? Let me know your reasoning down below as to why. And of course, it's the end of the video. So I do want to encourage you guys to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already, and encourage you one last time to visit the link down below in the description or the pinned comment below to get yourself a sticker pack, especially the Only Scams. That one is my absolute favorite. I look forward to seeing you guys in another video either later today or tomorrow. Bye for now.